Leviticus, chapter 9. On the 8th day Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, "Take a calf to offer a sacrifice for sin, and a ram for a holocaust, both without blemish, and bring them before the Lord. Then say to the sons of Israel, Take a goat to be offered as a sacrifice for sin, and as a holocaust a calf and a lamb both 1 year old and without blemish, and for communion sacrifices an ox and a ram to be immolated before the Lord, and finally an oblation mixed with oil. For the Lord will appear to you today." They brought what Moses had commanded in front of the tent of meeting. Then the whole community came and stood before the Lord. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has ordered to be done, so that his glory may be visible to you." Moses then addressed Aaron, "Go to the altar and offer your sacrifice for sin and your holocaust, and so perform the rite of atonement for yourself and your family. Then present the people's offering and perform the rite of atonement for them, as the Lord has ordered." Aaron went to the altar and immolated the calf as a sacrifice for his own sin. Then the sons of Aaron presented the blood to him. He dipped his finger in it and put some on the horns of the altar, and then poured out the rest of the blood at the foot of the altar. The fat of the sacrifice for sin and the kidneys and the fatty mass which is over the liver, he burned on the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The flesh and the skin he burned outside the camp. Next Aaron immolated the holocaust. His sons handed him the blood and he poured it on the borders of the altar. Then they handed him the quartered victim, and its head too, and he burned these on the altar. He washed the entrails and legs and burned them on the altar in addition to the holocaust. He then presented the people's offering. He took the goat for the people's sacrifice for sin, immolated it, and made a sacrifice for sin with it in the same way as with the first. Then he had the holocaust brought forward and proceeded according to the ritual. Next he had the oblation brought forward, took a handful of it and burned it on the altar in addition to the morning holocaust. Finally, he immolated the ox and the ram as a communion sacrifice for the people. Aaron's sons handed him the blood and he poured it out on the borders of the altar. The fat of the ox and of the ram, the tail, the fatty covering, the kidneys, the fatty mass over the liver, all of this he laid on the breasts and burned it all on the altar. With the breasts and the right thigh Aaron made the gesture of offering as the Lord had ordered Moses. Then Aaron raised his hands towards the people and blessed them. Having thus performed the sacrifice for sin, the holocaust and the communion sacrifice, he came down and entered the tent of meeting with Moses. Then they came out together to bless the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole people. A flame leaped forth from before the Lord and consumed the holocaust and the fat that was on the altar. At this sight the people shouted for joy and fell on their faces.